Right now, I feel like manifestation is really popular. It's everywhere. All kinds of people promoting different kinds of manifestations. What do we get wrong about manifestation?
Well, I think in very much it relates to what we were just talking about. As an example, there's the book The Secret, which, as you probably know, was incredibly popular and had several spin-off aspects of it. But if you really look into it, the narrative was very self-focused. What do I want? If you want to be a millionaire, if you want to do, have a Porsche, et cetera, whatever it was, you just do this. And in fact, that's what I ended up doing because I was very self-focused and I did not have self-awareness or insight as a 12-year-old. So I just put all the techniques that are used commonly for manifestation out there. And I did get all those things, but I was miserable. And what I realized in this period of self-reflection was that one, that type of narrative where you're self-focused leads to unhappiness. But the other is that the most powerful aspect is in your mind. And you mentioned you kept looking for things in the universe that were going to come and save you. The first sentence in my book is the universe doesn't give a fuck about you.
It's my favorite thing ever.
And it's funny, I was talking to John Hamm the other day, and he was saying, because he's read the book early on, he was saying, well, at best it is indifferent. But that is the problem. And the power is within you. And this is what people forget because they think that something outside has the power to influence their lives. And it is in some way, but the most powerful thing to change your life is inside of you. It's just learning how to use the tools that already exist, because all of us every day are manifesting. It's just we do it very efficiently for most people. So having techniques that maximize your brain, if you will, to embed your intention are very powerful. And so this book is actually based on neuroscience. It's not based on the woo-woo and the pseudoscience. But I would say that there are aspects of it that are identical. It's just like religion. I mean, religion is fundamentally based on compassion. But over thousands of years, people have learned these techniques, but they've wrapped it always around a dogma that serves that culture. And in some ways, I think that's analogous to what's happened with manifestation. But there are very concrete ways in which you can maximize the potential for you to manifest. Because one, manifestation isn't a one and done. It takes work. And the other thing is that when you focus on the other in the process of manifesting, several things happen. One is you get outside of yourself and you realize you're not that important. Two is when you're of service to others, that activates your brain networks much more than if it's self-focused. It's like depression is self-focused, right? When you're afraid, it's very self-focused. When you accept that things aren't always perfect, when you are not chasing things for self, but are focused on making other people happy, making their lives better, you realize several things happen. You do get all the things you want, but oftentimes you realize that the things you thought you wanted aren't really what you need. And that's a fascinating journey, I think.
I have lots of experience with that one. And I've come to the conclusion that I am not a good judge of what's good for me or bad for me, because so many things, like you, things that I thought I wanted, I got, and they turned out to be the worst thing for me. And conversely, things that I thought would be the worst things for me were the best things for me. You know, I always refer to getting sober 10 years ago. I thought getting sober would be the end of my life, the worst thing to ever happen to me. And it's the foundation for my entire life. And it's been the greatest joy of my life.
And again, you went from being self-focused by drinking and sort of doing these negative behaviors, if you will, and then suddenly you're helping other people overcome their own struggles or looking at people who are suffering, and also understanding, I think, that everyone is suffering in different ways. And this is, I think, also where people get confused, is because if you look at the media and some influencers, they give the impression that their lives are perfect. And, having been around the block several times, and knowing some extraordinarily wealthy people, oftentimes it's just the opposite. I mean, so many of these people are miserable, and they keep trying to fill the emptiness that all of us have with things.
Yes.
And the thing is that it's the difference between what we call hedonic happiness and eudaimonic happiness. Hedonic happiness is all focused on self-pleasure and decreasing pain, but it's very transitory. So you have to keep doing more and more of it. And also it builds on people admiring you for, living this lifestyle. But suddenly nobody's that interested again, and you start feeling this emptiness. When you're of service to people, when you care about people, the reward is this incredible effect on your physiology, both mental and peripheral physiology. Because if you look at how we evolved as a species, we're one of the few animals that our offspring don't run off into the jungle or the forest or swim away. They have to be cared for. Well, there's an imperative there for our survival that we take care of them. Well, why would we spend time and resources to take care of our offspring unless somehow we're rewarded? And the way we're rewarded is by the release of different neurotransmitters, one of which I'm sure you're aware of is oxytocin, or the love hormone, or bonding hormone. And that stimulates your pleasure and reward center. So you want to do these actions for others. The other thing is that it also shifts you into engagement of your parasympathetic nervous system. And this is called the rest and digest system. So this is the system where when you're in that state, you're open, you connect with others, your executive control areas in your brain work their best. It gives you access to memory, prior experiences, but it also has a huge effect on your peripheral physiology in the context of what we call heart rate variability. It decreases that, and that may seem like a paradox, but also your heart rate goes down, your blood pressure decreases, your immune system's boosted, the release of stress hormones are decreased, inflammatory protein production is markedly decreased, and actually all from just being kind, thoughtful, and connecting with others. And it's very, very powerful. And that's really, if somebody experiences that authentically, they get it suddenly, and they start focusing on that, because when you're in that state, you're constantly happy because you're being rewarded for caring.
Yeah, and I've heard you say that conversely, if you are in fear or anxiety, it's kind of blocking that executive functioning. It's blocking that access to memory and experience. So I would imagine that you just get, kind of in this little bubble.
No, you're exactly right. And that's the sad thing is, and in some ways, this is what happens when you're self-focused.
Yeah.
Because when you're self-focused, you're worried about you, which in some ways is a fear state. And as you pointed out, the fear state activates your sympathetic nervous system, this flight, fight, or freeze response. And it does just the opposite in terms of how it affects your brain and your peripheral physiology. And so in some ways, what we're talking about is understanding the difference between functioning in a fear state and a love state. And I would suggest you, and the neuroscience supports it, when you look through the lens of love, your ability to manifest is much, much greater.